In a world teetering on the edge of the unknown, where tomorrow's forecast could just as easily include firestorms, megathrust earthquakes, or a rogue asteroid as it could mild showers, the line between routine and catastrophe is razor thin. If Hollywood had its way, disasters would be cinematic spectacles, slow-motion tsunamis swallowing cities, infernos painting the skies, and just enough heroic survival to keep the popcorn flowing. But real disasters don't follow a script. They're pretty messy, unpredictable, and often shaped less by nature's fury and more by human unpreparedness. Early warning systems, infrastructure, and science can turn impending doom into a near miss, while negligence, greed, and bad luck tip the scales toward devastation. Let's take a look at the 15 most disastrous natural events that could happen tomorrow, starting with Number 15. Coronal mass ejection. Few people realize the sun could knock modern civilization back to the Stone Age in an instant. Coronal mass ejections are huge bursts of plasma and magnetic fields from the sun, and when they hit Earth, they wreak havoc on electrical systems. The 1859 Carrington event sent electric shocks through telegraph lines, setting offices on fire. If the same event happened today, power grids, satellites, and communications would collapse. We got lucky in 2012 when a powerful CME narrowly missed Earth. In 2003, a weaker one still caused hundreds of millions in damage, disrupting flights and blacking out power grids. Scientists warn that a direct hit from a massive CME could fry transformers worldwide, causing power outages that last months or even years. Without electricity, food supply chains fail, water pumps stop, and social order crumbles. Solar activity follows an 11-year cycle, and we're entering a peak phase. Next time, we might not be so lucky. Number 14. Global pandemic. Pandemics aren't just history lessons, they're inevitable. The 2014 West African Ebola outbreak reminded the world how fast a virulent disease can spread and how ill-prepared we are to handle it. Just when officials declared the region Ebola-free in 2016, another case appeared days later. This cycle isn't new. Viruses evolve, and humanity provides the perfect breeding ground. History has shown pandemics can reshape civilizations. The Black Death wiped out a third of Europe, while the 1918 Spanish flu killed tens of millions. COVID-19 proved how quickly economies and societies can buckle under pressure. The real nightmare? A virus with the lethality of Ebola, but airborne like the flu, killing 80 to 90% of the population. We increase our risk daily, expanding cities, cutting into wild habitats, and traveling constantly. Pandemics have struck every few decades, and with increasing globalization, the next one isn't a question of if, but when. Number 13. Peak phosphorus. The world runs on phosphorus. It's vital for crops, life, and global food production. Unlike oil, which we can replace with alternatives, phosphorus has no synthetic substitute. It comes from mined rock, and we're burning through it at unsustainable rates. Current estimates suggest we could reach peak phosphorus in 30 to 40 years, triggering a crisis unlike any before. Historically, food shortages have been postponed by scientific breakthroughs, like the Haber-Bosch process, which pulled nitrogen from the air to create fertilizer. But phosphorus? We don't have a backup plan. Once it's gone, crop yields will plummet, leading to widespread famine. The problem isn't just scarcity, it's waste. Most phosphorus is lost through human and animal waste, farm runoff, and inefficient use. Recycling phosphorus could buy time, but eventually, the Earth's supply will run dry. When that happens, population growth will slam into an immovable wall, the limits of nature itself. Number 12. The thermohaline circulation shuts down. The ocean's thermohaline circulation, in short, THC, is the planet's heating and cooling system, moving warm and cold water around the globe. If it shuts down, the consequences would be catastrophic. Climate change is already melting Arctic ice at an alarming rate. If too much fresh water floods the North Atlantic, it could weaken or halt the THC. That might not sound dramatic, but the effects would be severe. Europe would freeze, tropical regions would overheat, monsoon patterns would shift, and global agriculture would spiral into chaos. Past shutdowns triggered mini ice ages, forcing civilizations to adapt or collapse. While a full shutdown is unlikely, even a slowdown would disrupt weather patterns worldwide. Scientists believe the THC weakened in recent decades, raising concerns that we're closer to a tipping point than previously thought. If climate change keeps accelerating, we may see the ocean's great conveyor belt grind to a halt, rewriting global weather systems as we know them. Number 11. The Helena Slump. Everyone fears the potential of a mega tsunami from the Canary Islands' Cumbre Vieja volcano, but few realize an even bigger threat may be lurking in the Pacific. On Hawaii's Big Island, a massive portion of Kilauea's southern flank, known as the Helena Slump, is slowly creeping toward the ocean. If it were to break off suddenly, an estimated 12,000 cubic kilometers of rock could plunge into the Pacific, displacing enough water to trigger a tsunami that would race across the ocean at jetliner speeds. The worst-case scenario? Waves hundreds of meters high smashed into the U.S. West Coast, Japan, and surrounding Pacific nations with almost no warning. This isn't just theoretical. Evidence suggests that a similar event 120,000 years ago caused a 400-meter-high tsunami in Hawaii. Even a minor shift, like the one in 1975, caused destructive waves that reached California. With ongoing seismic activity in the region, it's not a question of if, but when the next big collapse happens. Number 10. Indonesia's forgotten supervolcano. Yellowstone gets all the headlines, but it's not the only supervolcano capable of rewriting Earth's future. Deep in Indonesia, beneath the deceptively calm waters of Lake Toba, lurks a volcanic titan with a history of global catastrophe. Roughly 74,000 years ago, Toba erupted in an explosion so massive that it ejected 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash, 12% more than Yellowstone's last known eruption. The blast was powerful enough to trigger a volcanic winter, plunging the planet into darkness and possibly pushing early human populations to the brink of extinction. Now, there are troubling signs Toba may be waking up. Rising temperatures, increased seismic activity, and volcanic gas emissions suggest it might not stay dormant forever. And unlike Yellowstone, which sits in a relatively unpopulated region, Toba's eruption could devastate over 50 million people across Southeast Asia. Worse still, with the Indian Ocean just 40 kilometers away, a massive tsunami could be part of the disaster. Let's hope this giant stays asleep. Number 9. The Cascadia superquake. People worry about California's San Andreas Fault, but the real earthquake time bomb is further north. The Cascadia subduction zone, a 620-mile stretch where the Juan de Fuca plate is slowly sliding beneath North America, is long overdue for a massive rupture. Scientists estimate there's a 1 in 10 chance that a catastrophic 9.0 magnitude quake will hit the Pacific Northwest in the next 50 years. And if that happens, the destruction will make California's big one look tame. For comparison, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake in Japan, also a 9.0, triggered a tsunami that killed 18,000 people, caused the Fukushima nuclear disaster, and racked up over $200 billion in damages. Japan was prepared for that. The Pacific Northwest? Not so much. Major cities like Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver are built on soft soil that would liquefy in a massive quake. Roads, bridges, and the Interstate 5 corridor would be shattered, leaving millions stranded. A tsunami would wipe out coastal towns, and emergency services would be overwhelmed. The worst part? The last big one was in 1700, meaning the clock is ticking. Number 8. A killer asteroid. The dinosaurs didn't see it coming, and neither will we. Every few centuries, Earth gets a wake-up call from space, reminding us that extinction-level impacts aren't just the stuff of science fiction. Case in point, on February 15, 2013, a meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, with the force of 30 Hiroshima bombs, shattering windows and injuring over 1,500 people. Had it detonated lower or over a major city, the devastation could have been deadly. Hours after that event, a larger asteroid 3 times the size of the Chelyabinsk rock passed between Earth and its satellites, an unnervingly close call. Scientists estimate that a New York-sized asteroid could obliterate a major city, setting off firestorms and wiping out millions in seconds. And then there's Apophis, an asteroid set to pass terrifyingly close to Earth in 2029, with a slim but non-zero chance of impact in 2036. If it hits, expect a blast equivalent to a 300-megaton nuclear bomb. Number 7. The sleeping giant of Naples. Mount Vesuvius may get the attention, but Campi Flegrei, the supervolcano next to it, is the real threat. This underground volcanic system stretching beneath Naples has erupted before, most notably 39,000 years ago, in an event that blanketed Europe in ash and triggered global cooling. Now it's showing signs of unrest. Ground inflation, increased seismic activity, and rising gas emissions suggest magma is building beneath the surface. With over 3 million people living atop this ticking time bomb, even a moderate eruption could blanket Naples in ash, unleash toxic gas clouds, and force mass evacuations. A full-scale eruption? Well, that could be civilization-altering. Scientists warn it could trigger a volcanic winter, devastating global agriculture and crashing economies. Unlike Vesuvius, which erupts in dramatic bursts, Campi Flegrei is a simmering monster, and the more pressure it builds, the more catastrophic the outcome when it finally erupts. Number 6. The Peruvian megaquake. Peru sits atop one of the most dangerous fault lines in the world, the Nazca subduction zone. The last truly massive earthquake here struck in 1746, and geologists warn another big one is overdue. The fault is under immense stress, and when it finally ruptures, it could unleash a magnitude 9.0 plus earthquake, shaking the region violently for several minutes. In Lima, home to 10 million people, buildings would collapse in seconds, infrastructure would crumble, and chaos would unfold. But the real nightmare comes after, the tsunami. A mega tsunami, with waves up to 30 meters high, could obliterate Peru's coastline, reaching far beyond South US. Scientists have been closely monitoring the seismic strain, and stress levels are higher than they've been in centuries. When this quake hits, it won't just be a disaster for Peru. It could trigger a chain reaction of destruction across the Pacific. Number 5. The mega earthquake under Tokyo. Tokyo is one of the most earthquake-resilient cities on the planet, but even its advanced engineering won't be enough when the big one strikes. The city sits atop 3 colliding tectonic plates, making it one of the most seismically active places on Earth. The last devastating quake, the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, registered at magnitude of 7.9 and killed over 140,000 people. Now experts warn there's a 70% chance of a magnitude 8 plus earthquake hitting within the next 30 years. If that happens, even Tokyo's modern skyscrapers and infrastructure could crumble. Fires would rage, water and electricity could fail, and millions could be left stranded. Worse, Tokyo Bay's soft sediment could amplify the shaking, triggering landslides and even a tsunami. Despite Japan's strict building codes and early warning systems, a quake of this scale could overwhelm everything, leaving Tokyo in ruins. The countdown has already begun. Number 4. The Arctic methane bomb. The Arctic permafrost is thawing, and with it, a doomsday scenario is unfolding. Trapped beneath the frozen ground are vast reserves of methane, a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. If even a small fraction is released, it could trigger rapid global warming on an unprecedented scale. Scientists have dubbed it the methane time bomb, and recent data suggests the clock is already ticking. Massive methane leaks have been detected across Siberia, Alaska, and Canada, with satellite images capturing enormous craters where underground gas pockets have violently exploded. If this continues, Earth's temperature could spike several degrees in just a few years, leading to extreme droughts, deadly heat waves, and uncontrollable wildfires. Coastal cities would be swallowed by rising seas, and global food supplies would collapse. This isn't a distant threat. It's already happening, and once the methane floodgates open, there's no shutting them. Number 3. The Doomsday Glacier Collapse. Antarctica's Thwaites Glacier, better known as the Doomsday Glacier, is melting at an alarming rate. Roughly the size of Florida, this massive ice sheet is barely holding on. Scientists say it's not a matter of if it collapses, but when. And when it does, the consequences will be catastrophic. If Thwaites fully disintegrates, global sea levels could rise over 3 meters. That's enough to submerge coastal cities like New York, Miami, and London, displacing tens of millions and causing mass migration crises. The chain reaction wouldn't stop there. Other Antarctic glaciers would follow, leading to even more sea level rise. Some estimates say this could happen within decades. Others believe it could be even sooner. Either way, when Thwaites finally gives way, the world will be dealing with its consequences for centuries. Number 2. The African Rift Breakup. Africa is splitting apart, literally. The East African Rift, a massive fault line stretching thousands of kilometers, is slowly tearing the continent in two. In 2005, a 60-kilometer crack opened in Ethiopia in just days, and similar rifts have been appearing ever since. Scientists believe that within 5 to 10 million years, a new ocean will form, creating a separate landmass. That's the long-term outlook. The immediate concern? Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The rift's increasing seismic activity threatens heavily populated areas in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. A major rupture could destroy infrastructure, trigger deadly earthquakes, and cause massive inland flooding, permanently altering Africa's geography. While the full continental breakup is still far in the future, the signs of instability are happening now, and the next big shake could come at any moment. Number 1. The North Sea Tsunami. The North Sea isn't exactly known for its tsunamis, but history proves otherwise. Roughly 8,000 years ago, a catastrophic underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a monstrous tsunami. Waves over 20 meters high slammed into the Shetland Islands, 10-meter surges devastated Norway's coastline, and Scotland's shores were battered by 6-meter-high walls of water. Now, with climate change accelerating, rising sea levels are increasing the risk of a repeat event. Melting polar ice is adding more weight to already unstable seabed deposits. Another undersea landslide could send a tsunami racing across the North Sea, putting coastal cities in Norway, Scotland, and even London at risk. Unlike Pacific nations with robust early warning systems, these areas are woefully unprepared for a tsunami. If history repeats itself, major cities could be caught off guard by a wave that no one saw coming, until it was too late. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.